Are you stuck? How about unhappy? Join Alena Chapman, author, mentor, and life coach for Magical Moments with Alena as she challenges you to get out of the doldrum and start living your life to the fullest. Alena will help you take control of your life and push you to do the things you never thought you'd do. So get ready to take back your power and celebrate life with Magical Moments featuring Alena Chapman.
Welcome to Magical Moments for that ease and that flow in your life. And boy, I think we really deserve that. We so deserve it. It's owed to us. It really is. I'm your host, Alena Chapman. And today I have a magical nugget for you. This came to me, it came last week. I'm having realtors trying to sell my house. I'm observing a lot of people. And I started to observe some people helping me out in this wonderful sales project and this just getting the other house in order. And it's just a lot of stuff. And so I've had a lot of people around me that I could observe. And this is the thing I noticed. And I want to see, this might be something that you might look at for yourself. We tend to give parts of ourselves away on a daily basis. Now, when we give away, like in a charity, we're doing volunteer work, we're honest, that's wonderful because it's reciprocal, meaning what you're getting back is that satisfaction, that happiness that you've helped someone. All right, so that's the law of receiving. Or if you're doing a service and you give all to the service, then that's still reciprocal because you're still getting something back. And it's important to get something back because it's an energy flow. But what we sometimes do is we let people take things from us, moments in time, things we really don't want to do, things that irk us, things that we know aren't right for us, but we do it anyway or we put up with it. That all starts to affect us. It does something inside. It takes away the power of us. We start to doubt, or we start to feel drained. We start to question. We start to not feel good. It affects the worthiness of ourselves. And it's not that you have to go out there with guns blazing. It's a way of honoring who you are and saying, whoa, I really don't feel comfortable doing that right now. But if you want to go ahead and do it, go for it. Or, I really don't think that's for me. It's having that honoring of self to say, this isn't right. This is not what's going to make me feel good. This is not what I want taken from me. This is not the moment I want to give that parcel. And that's all right. It happens all the time, usually when people are talking together. Or when you're in a group of friends and all the friends want to do one thing that isn't right for you. They all believe something that you don't believe, but you're so scared to say anything. It really does eat at you. And it's not like you have to live on an island. You just have to, where nobody is and you're happy and, well, you think you're happy until you look around and nobody's there and you're thinking, where did everybody go? No, all you have to do is start honoring yourself and say, do I really want to put up with this? Or do I really want to give that? Or do I really want to be that way? Or do I really want to give that part of me to anybody right now? Do you see? And it's funny, when you start honoring yourself that way, every little step you take in doing that, you start to respect yourself more and more and more. Isn't that cool? And when you start respecting yourself, other people look at you and they start respecting you. Because what happens inside becomes your reality. Yeah. I thought that might be a nice little magical nugget for people out there, and I was just called to do it. So somebody out there must have needed it. Now, I have a wonderful guest. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so fun. Daniel Alexa. Now, who is Daniel Alexa? He coaches dead people. Yes, you heard me right. I waited all morning to say that. The dead people, those who have given up on fully living because they bought into a limiting story of how their life should be. Ah, doesn't that hit the core, huh? His gift is to bring them back to life by breathing new air into their life story as they exhale what they no longer need. Isn't that cool? As a transcendent living coach, Daniel is not interested in transactional sessions. He is curious about the person in front of him. How can they transform to live their best life? He's also a 3-time Amazon #1 best-selling author. Welcome to the group, Daniel. Life coach, trainer, keynote speaker, award-winning hypnotherapist, holistic entrepreneur, and transcendent living coach. Isn't that cool? And with that, I want to bring him right on. Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Alena. Good morning. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I am doing great.
I'm so happy. So nice. All right. So let's get to it. So you coach the dead people, huh?
I do. Yes,
I love that.
They're very talkative.
So let's talk more. What what constitutes being dead? I don't usually say dead. I say we live a muggle life. But same thing. It's the same thing. So talk about what constitutes being dead versus alive.
What comes to mind initially is picking up on your magical moment this morning. That idea of what happens inside happens outside.
Yes.
And getting the polarity reversed. That we're living for that outward achievement that is going to bring some sort of life to us. And it doesn't. It's the idea of, I'll be happy when XYZ happens.
Yes.
And then XYZ happens, and it didn't quite fulfill me as much as I thought. And we continue giving away all of our power, our beliefs in ourselves, looking for some external validation. And when it doesn't come, we don't receive. And then we start to tap out. Our life force goes away. It drains out to other people and events and things. And all the toys don't mean anything anymore.
Right. And it's funny, and I know people out there, especially if they've just tuned into this, they'll say things like, but wait a minute, I'm doing what I was trained to do. I'm following in my father's footsteps, or I'm becoming what I've always trained. I've spent lots of money on this. I'm doing whatever I'm supposed to do. I'm having those kids. I'm building that family. That's what I'm supposed to do too. Now, this is the thing. So they think that they're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're looking for that verification from outside. That's where it's a very tough concept for people to understand.
And that's where I have to be very PC on this one, but I tend to get really blunt in these moments. But it comes down to, behind every I should or I'm supposed to, is somebody else's idea, not their own.
Yeah.
Who did you learn it from? And why are you continuing to live somebody else's life who grew up in a world vastly different than the one you're living in? I think back to my childhood, and in my childhood, really the formative years were in the early 70s. My parents grew up during the Depression, and they still had that Depression lack mindset even in the 70s.
Wow.
When there was so much more wealth in the world, wealth in the country, possibilities for growth.
Yeah.
But that struggle was like, don't waste that, keep a hold of that. And
yes.
all the old jokes from certain comedians about keeping things in, not Tupperware, but like the butter containers in the freezer, because you don't know when you might need that again.
Yeah.
That world didn't exist anymore in 1970. And even there's close to a 40-year, about a 40-year gap there. But just think about within the past 3 years, how different the world is now versus where it was in 2019. It is a different place. And even if your child was born in 2019, can't be living by 2019 standards in 2021 now.
I know.
That world doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't.
You're living our lives.
You know, there's a quote, and all my listeners, this is a quiz, so look up your quotes because I'm not remembering. I don't think it's Hoffer, but there's a quote that the people who are the learned, the people who are the learners are the people who grow, that let go and grow. The learned are the people that go extinct. Mm-hmm. You know, so if you've learned, and that was a paraphrase, not word for word, but basically, if we stay fast to what we have learned, to all that past, then when the world is changing, and I think this is so prevalent right now more than any other time, because we're in big change. But if you don't change with it, I mean, I see it everywhere. I see people saying, but that's not how it was. And I want things to go back the way they were. Nothing ever goes back to the way it was. You have to move forward. And that's where you say, well, am I the person who's learning or am I the learned and I'm extinct because it doesn't exist anymore?
Mm-hmm. Am I living my future based on my past? And there's certainly things to learn from the past, but that doesn't mean we're condemned to live only from that perspective.
Exactly. We're not condemned. And so when we are moving forward, well, that scares people. You're taking away security. Do you realize that? Or what they think is security.
There's a quote I heard sometime in the past year on that front, and it's interesting to me. There is no such thing as security. Because we really don't know anyway. No.
I know. Isn't that the truth? When I get up every morning, I can plan my day, but I don't know my day. Mm-hmm. And I think you bring up a really good point, because if I don't not start my day because I don't know, I still move forward. And in Think and Grow Rich, which I'm sure you're acquainted with.
Love it.
When when he says, he lists the persistence in the chapter of persistence, he lists the, one of them is to make a plan no matter if it's really not going to work. To get yourself moving. But he even lists that in there, So you make your schedule for the day, but you don't know what's going to be out there. And yet that doesn't stop you. So why not just jump into something different, a different kind of life, a different you, a freedom? It's just as risky as getting up in the morning. True?
It's very much true. It's just like we get on the highway, the proverbial highway of life, just like driving into work or driving home. You don't know. Traffic is dynamic. It changes in a moment's notice. It might be an accident or construction right in front of you. It could be 10 miles ahead. But at the moment you get in your vehicle to start the pathway forward, you don't know what's ahead of you and what may change on the road. But the only way to adapt to it is actually to get on the road and start moving forward.
Exactly. I like all your metaphors. So
I live in metaphor.
So tell me, how did you come to this realization in your life?
I reached a wall in my previous existence in corporate where I was in sales. My background is in creative arts. I'm a graphic designer by my original training. And I moved into sales because that was where more money was. And I'll be happier if I make more money. And there came a moment a few years into that portion of my career where I realized that I had stopped being creative, and my true passion was in creative expression and problem solving. Graphic design is visual problem solving. How do I make this look good? Yeah. And I came to this moment where I, not literally, but figuratively died because I became a control freak. Sales wasn't enjoyable to me. It was too much process. So I had to have my hands in everything. I'd be helping my clients to design their materials forward so they'd be successful. No matter who their eventual production company was, I wanted to help them be successful. That was my massive giving.
Right.
And then I'd have to do my own estimates. I'd have to almost practically walk things through production or be hyper controlling, because the more I knew about the process, the more I could handle it, the more I could solve the problem. And it burned me out.
Yeah.
I gave way too much without receiving back, because I was putting my receiving way out in the future. Oh, it'll pay off eventually. And I went down that spiral of what does all this mean, and why am I so unhappy?
Yes. A good wake-up call. I mean, that's a really good one. And realizing that, and even realizing that you had that control, that all of a sudden it's something that you didn't even really love. You had to control every aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very cool. I think, and it's a more of that outward award system. I'm going to get it back later. It's going to come back to me later, or that money's going to come in pretty soon. It's going to come in pretty soon. And we look for that outside satisfaction to feed an empty hole inside. Is that a good surmise of the situation?
Very much so, because the hole inside has to be addressed first. Otherwise, whatever happiness does come in flows back out that hole.
Yeah, it's a hungry hole, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't stop. It's funny. It's like we never graduated from getting the good grade versus the bad grade in school, which taught us.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, well, that's what taught us. Oh my gosh, I got a C. Oh no, my whole life has ended. And really, that's what we do in life. It's very interesting. So, all right. So I think people understand where this is all at, and if this is their life. But okay, so say I'm somebody who has this. They're right at that cusp of awakening to this, and they're saying, okay, I really don't like what I do, or I don't like the situation I'm in. But my heart's calling for something else. How do you help them? Because that step, Bob Proctor calls it the terror barrier. I tend to agree that it can be very scary to dip your toe outside that comfort zone. So how do you begin to gain the confidence inside? A leading question there. Inside, to help you push through that terror barrier and achieve what you want to achieve?
The first step is to stop. Just stop. Because when we're in that spin of the environment twisting us around because we've given our power to things outside of us, it's really hard to be grounded to decide what you want next.
Yes.
So the first thing we do is let's just stop and be, because the secret is in the being, not in the doing. And from that place of the pause, where do you want to go? Yeah. If we imagine standing in a circle, I can walk 360 degrees in any direction. I better know where I'm walking, or have a general sense of I want to go east, west, north, or south before I start going off towards some imaginary goal. And I better know what it is I want to achieve. We can course correct on the way. That's not a problem. But the more efficiently we decide where we want to go, the more the energy can be used with intention and focus, and also be in that space of what fulfills me. What's the feeling I want inside to start that journey, and where does it take me to further enhance that feeling versus, I think I want to go over there because I heard there's more money doing that, or I want to go to that company because they seem like they have a better culture, or I want this particular partner instead of my previous partner. Not really thinking about the personal fulfillment of what does the relationship, or what does the new job, what's the goal of it to bring to us inside. It
really is the just being. I think, a lot of times people just don't understand how important that just being is. It's funny, when I used to teach in colleges, universities. I used to teach music, and I used to teach voice and opera workshop and, oh my gosh, music history, never music theory. Thank you very much. And, but I used to do all these musical things, but all solo based, a solo singing voice. And then the director of the department says, well, you need to do a choir. I need you to do a women's choir. And in college, you don't have a degree for it. You got to have a degree. And I said, I don't have a degree. And he said, you can do it. And that's an opportunity. That opened my door into a whole new world. But what's the first thing I did? I went home. I grabbed a cup of tea. I went out and I sat under my favorite tree. And I was just being. I allowed myself to quiet my mind. And from that quiet mind, guys, because it's never in the busyness, right? If you fill your head with busyness and chaos and you just mull it over and it turns into the spinning spiral down, you got to stop it. That just being is big. You sit there and you just be and you breathe and you get your breath centered and you start to think about happiness. You get your mind off of it. And then from there, then you can ask the questions. So I'm going to start a choir. Okay. Well, what do I want this choir to be? Why do I want to do this? And why do the girls want to sing? Why would the audiences want to listen? What is the talent I bring to this? And from those creative questions, you start to form your next step. Am I right?
Very much so. I found when I was going through something similar, I was coming to that moment of awareness. And thankfully, the universe is always on our side. Thankfully, I was paying attention to it being on my side at the time.
Is that true?
And I was reading 2 different books. And within a week of reading pages in these 2 different books, the concept of ikigai came to me from each of these. One was Blue Zones, which is where the concept was first presented. And then the other was the book Black Hole Focus that changed my life.
Awesome.
And the idea that ikigai comes from Okinawa, which is one of the blue zones in the world. And they don't have a word for retirement in their language, but they do have this word ikigai that roughly translates to the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning and living with purpose.
Yes.
And I started asking myself, why am I going to this miserable soul-sucking job every day? And the surface answer is always because you have a mortgage, you moron. Okay, but I'm not feeling that one. I hear it in my head, but I'm not feeling it in my body.
Right.
And it took about 10 days, the better part of 2 weeks of waking up every morning and asking myself, why am I going here? And a client called one morning and said, hey, we need you to come over this afternoon. We just had this hot project dropped in our laps, and we kind of sort of know what we want, but we don't know how to get there, and we know you will. Do you have time at 2? Yeah, see it too. And as I hung up the phone, the cartoon light bulb was above my head. Like, I love problem solving. I'm really good at it. I love the negotiation of it. So, like, what's the most informed decision we can make? There is no such thing as a right or wrong decision. There's only decisions. What's the most informed one we can make? And that space of being, of dropping in from the head overload, and I felt it in my core. There was this solid feeling in my solar plexus chakra. Like, yeah, this is what it's all about. This is me. This is my soul calling. This is where I go next. And then it was the process of, what do I do with that piece of wisdom now? And once I opened to that led me into hypnotherapy, led me into coaching, and led me to now living the life that I'm living.
We both did 2 things. Well, we just be, okay? And then we asked questions. Isn't that cool? There is a little system there, you know what I mean? And it really is that. But you have to just be first. You got to get yourself back to a status quo that's not a busy, crazy, critical mind. How can people find out more about you? Because I love this. And we didn't even get to talk about the hypnotherapy, which I find so fascinating. Someday you and I will have a coffee and talk about that. But
that sounds wonderful.
I think so too. But how can people find out more about you?
You can find me at my website, danielolexa.com, or more simply, you can find me at icoachdeadpeople.com.
I love that. Nobody will forget that. I love that. That's good. I love having you on the show. And everyone out there, you know what? At Soul Manifesto, one thing we always say is that you become your own very best soulmate. And again, that soulmate is not something outside of yourself. It's inside. And what does that provide you? Oh my gosh, that confidence, that freedom, that relaxation. Oh, the shoulders finally go down. Oh, yes. That feeling of assuredness, that comfortable just being you, because you truly are that soulmate. Check out Soul Manifesto, and if you are interested and want to learn more about other programs that aren't listed on there, because I teach like 7 different programs, we're getting up there, but The Inevitable You is a wonderful place to discover that soulmate inside, that divinity. But if you're interested in other, just go to soulmanifesto.com. Check around the site. We got some cool stuff. And you can always contact or send an email to me directly, info@soulmanifesto.com. info@soulmanifesto.com. It is time, folks. It is time to believe in ourselves. Both Daniel and I are here telling you it is so time. And what in the heck are you waiting for? Spirit is love. And the only way we can open up to love is when we really start to understand and open ourselves up to us. Because what we believe about ourselves, we believe about every person we see. And that is spirit.
This has been Magical Moments with Alena, featuring Alena Chapman. If you missed an episode, download it now on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, CastBox, Deezer, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. Learn more online at soulmanifesto.com.
Podcasts by Federated Media.